Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and this is the 87th Ask a Herbert Erpaderp. Does that number have any particular significance? Not to me it doesn't. Okay, first of all I want to welcome a new patron, Mitch Boudreau. I certainly hope I'm saying that correctly. Thank you very much for your generous contribution. I appreciate it quite a lot. You can expect a card in the mail sometime soon. I haven't actually bought it yet, but I will do that tomorrow. I've decided that I'm going to do these patron welcomey shout-out things at the start of Ask a Herbert Erpaderp from now on, because of reasons. Another thing pertaining to Patreon, I've started building my AFV Club Centurion Mark V that you may have seen me showing on Discord. That's all well and good, Herbert, but what does it have to do with Patreon, you might ask? Well, I decided I would do a kind of blog thing on Patreon as I build the kit. There's going to be pictures and some text and, well, I guess that's all really. That's what a blog is. I'll be posting little updates every few days as the build progresses, and going forward I do plan on doing this with any kit that's a bit more complex than your average gaming kit. You know, things that take multiple days to build, which is mostly going to be the bigger stuff like 1/35th scale. The first 2 blog posts are already up, and maybe by the time this is live there'll be a third as well. No promises though. This isn't something that I'm planning on making public, it'll be for patrons only. So if that sounds like something that would be of interest to you, head on over to Patreon and sign up. You'll also get the other benefits like seeing videos a bit early, access to the patron-only Discord channel, being able to take part in polls, and you'll also be able to send me questions in your own voice, which leads me nicely into the first question, which is from Ratto.
Last night I had a dream about standing in shower and thinking about what to ask in Ask a Herbert Erpaderp. Is this normal?
I don't know if that's normal or not. Maybe not, but it could be worse. Though still, if it does persist, maybe consider seeing a professional. And now for the text-based questions. Uncle Seal said, would you play a game of bolt action with Flames of War miniatures? I don't really have any plans to do that, but it can certainly be done and it's not something I would oppose. It seems like it would be especially good for larger games, maybe even games with more than 2 players. You could have some really big cinematic battles, and that would be pretty cool. Burner581 said, do you have any display shelves or something like that to show off your miniatures? I recently started making space to do so and I'm curious if you have something like that. I do have some shelving for my models that I installed somewhat recently, though I wouldn't really call them display shelves, mostly storage. I installed them to free up space elsewhere, mostly so I could have more fish tanks. I'm pretty much the only one that sees it, so I didn't see much point in setting up a display. I'd rather have the storage space. I feel like a display shelf should have the models in a less crowded arrangement than what I have. Garharis909, if I'm saying that correctly, said, have you ever considered building and painting a 1/6 or 1/12 scale motorcycle? Tamiya makes some very nice model kits. It's never occurred to me. I don't have any real interest in motorcycles, so the only ones I've built are kind of incidental, like the one that came with the Tamiya King Tiger. I think in those scales I would prefer to build a tank or something, though they are huge and would take up way too much space, not to mention the cost. So it's not really something I'm considering at all. I do agree though, Tamiya makes some very nice kits. Badger said, when and how did you get into scale modelling? I'm pretty sure I've talked about this a bunch of times, so I'll be brief. When I was a kid, way back in the old days, I had model trains. Train-specific stuff is quite expensive, and there wasn't really enough money for me to have many of those models. But Airfix and Revell kits were cheap, so I did get a bunch of those to put with my trains, and it went from there. I can't really recall any specific kits that I had when I was a kid. After all, it was a long time ago, and I'm old and crap now. Max Strike Eagle said, would you ever consider building something in a scale larger than 1/35th? Generally, bigger models take up more space and cost more. Well, that just makes sense, doesn't it? But it does make it less likely that I'm going to be building those. In fact, I think I'm probably going to have to start selling off some models in the near future if I keep building 1/35th scale stuff, even though I would rather not. Actually, thinking about it, to be fair, the Battle Beetle I made is in 1/32nd scale, so I guess we could say that I technically have already built something bigger than 1/35th. technically correct is the best kind of correct. Soviet T-3485 said, if you could get a real working Stuka for free, would you get it? Who would say no to that deal? I mean, I would be wary that there were other conditions that aren't advertised because somebody giving away something like that sounds like a trap, but I would definitely want to take it. I couldn't fly it or anything like that, but it would be cool to have. I would sit in it and make plane sounds because I'm a mature adult. SpaceFan247 said, would you ever 3D print models if you could? Also, what is your favourite vehicle and why? Sure, I could go and buy a 3D printer now and print stuff if I wanted to. You can do some pretty cool stuff with them. That said, I don't really have any interest in or time for tinkering with the 3D files, sanding and cleaning up the lines you see on some 3D prints, or just messing with the printer itself. I'm pretty certain it's not going to just work, and that's what I would want. Things that just work with minimum input from myself. I'm sure there'll be a time, probably pretty soon, when 3D printers are as ubiquitous as regular old paper printers, but they're not at that point just yet. Also, I just really like kits. I think it's going to be a long while before 3D printing takes over from kits, at least for me. I don't have a favourite vehicle. I'm far too indecisive and don't really see the point in picking one vehicle to be an arbitrary favourite. There's a lot of cool vehicles out there, so why restrict myself? That said, some of the tanks I like most include the KV-2, Tiger, T-3485, Cromwell and Centurion. Ducking Tanker said, if you could 3D print a KV-2 turret, would you? You know I would, especially if it was life-sized. I might even put another KV-2 turret on it. You know, for reasons. Joseph Stalin said, ever travelled to glorious motherland? That was terrible. Please don't send to Gulag. I've never been to glorious motherland. This seems kind of ominous, being asked by Stalin himself and all. Uncle Joe, hey, why does Stalin have 2 accounts? Anyway, the question is, have you ever tried playing 40k? I have, it's actually the first wargame that I ever got into, which is probably the same as a lot of other people. I was introduced to it by a girlfriend at the time who had a Tyranid army. I built myself a Tau army. Barnaby and I also played it a fair bit a few years ago, but we lost interest in it when a new rulebook came out. Partly because we were both a bit bored with it anyway, but mostly because neither of us wanted to sell our liver so we could afford the new book. I'd been getting more interested in Flames of War, so we decided to focus more on that game instead. 40k hasn't managed to sucker me back into it. There are some pretty cool models for it, but I would prefer to spend my money elsewhere. Plaid Squid 41030 said, what sort of tank is this? Clearly it's a Panzer Ferb. That's not very funny, but it's the best I've got. I'm tired, give me a break. Post your best answers to this question in the comments below. I Need Help said, have you ever been super desperate to make your model look as close as possible to the real thing? I'm currently having this problem with my F-14 and kinda seeking advice on how to cope with it. I'm pretty sure I've never felt that way. It seems kind of stressful and detrimental to the enjoyment of the hobby, at least in my opinion. To me, it seems almost impossible to get colours exactly right. You have to account for things like weathering, very slight differences in paint, lighting conditions, which means that no 2 planes, or any other object really, are going to look identical. And photos are going to have differences in colour too. I guess unless you're going to base your model on one specific picture, it seems really hard. I feel like near enough is good enough. I'm sure that kind of attitude might cause high blood pressure in rivet counters, but that's their problem. An exact match seems like barking up the wrong tree. I'm pretty sure you could get fairly close though. I don't really have any advice on how to cope with it. Maybe think about what real benefit all the effort and work in getting a super precise colour match is going to get you. I mean, most people are never going to realise that it's a super accurate colour, and more than likely, a bunch of people are just going to think it's the wrong shade anyway. Doesn't matter what colour you use, it's going to be the wrong shade to somebody. I guess who are you building the model for? Doing it to please others is a bit silly. Is it really going to make you happy? Either way, good luck. Jondell said, "Does Australia have the same problem that England has with teenagers trying so hard to look cool? Also, please get your voice out of my head when I read your posts." I have no idea what it's currently like. I don't really associate with teenagers. I would assume that nothing has changed and most of them still try hard to look cool and be popular though. And there's probably still all those smug teens who try really hard to look like they're not trying to be cool and thinking somehow that makes them better than their peers. It's not really specific to any country, it's kind of a universal thing. Teenagers all over the world are kind of garbage. I guess that's actually a pretty unfair generalization. I'm sure there's a lot of decent teens too, especially the ones that have cool hobbies. Also, it's probably not really their fault that the average teenager is awful. They have all kinds of hormones and changes and things going on, and they're trying to find themselves while there's all this marketing aimed at insecurities telling them they have to be cool or whatever. It is a confusing time in life, even though your average teen seems to think they know everything already. I don't envy the young people of today, where every cringeworthy thing they do is probably on video or saved online somewhere. Also, I will not remove my voice from your head. Be thankful I don't charge a fee. On the previous Ask a Herbert Erpaderp, Anti-Kami Sama said, "Will you ever build the Warlord plastic Stug?" Maybe. I don't have one in my stash though, and I'm more likely to buy their newer kits. Also, it's kind of annoying when people repeatedly ask me to build things in multiple videos' comments. Annoying me is the wrong way to go about getting me to do something. And that's it for the questions this fortnight. Let's check out the models that have been shared on the Discord server. First up, we have Ratto's very naughty Germany mans. Some of these are obviously on horses, and the horses do look rather good. The ones not on horseback look pretty good too. According to Ratto, these are the extra bad Nazis. Like the really, really bad Nazis. They should be punched. Nicely painted though. General Spade has finished this adult Remoraz, if I'm saying that right. The model is by Nulzor's Marvelous Miniatures for Dungeons & Dragons. It's quite creepy, and doesn't look at all pleasant to encounter. Very nice work. SpaceFan247 shared this new updated version of the PMD robot, which you may remember from the Derptopian Army group build. It now has legs and warning stripes. Excellent. Pax Britannica shared his Red Legion Repulsor. I don't know what it says on the side there, but I suspect it's something about there being delicious cake for all in the Red Legion. This is a pretty interesting looking model and it's been very nicely painted. I really like the shades of green used. The Tourette's Gamer shared this Rubicon Panther in 28mm scale. This was their first time creating a German tricolour camouflage. Not having an airbrush, the Tourette's Gamer made do and used foam to create it. Points for resourcefulness. The foam does seem to have imparted a little bit of a texture to the colours, but it's really not too bad. Like you said though, the lines of colour could probably be a little bit thinner, though I'm no expert on German camo. Here's another one from the Tourette's Gamer. They seem to have created a 15mm scale Anglo-Russian Churchill 85. Tremble before its underpowered engine and cheaply constructed turret. This really entertained me. What a great combination. An improvement was suggested. A KV-2 turret atop the T-34 turret. And here it is. That's awesome. Top Bunk Productions has completed this T-34-76. You may remember the chopped in half crewman from last fortnight, though you can't really tell from this angle. This is really cool. I believe the tank is meant to be in bare metal, perhaps sent right out of the factory onto the battlefield. It seems to have been getting around like that for a while though, because it has corroded quite a bit. I like the chalk markings all over it. I don't know what any of them say, well, other than the numbers. I can read numbers, but it looks cool. Very interesting concept. Top Bunk has also completed Commissar Shooter-Morlovsky, who we also saw last fortnight in a less completed state, unless it was the fortnight before. Anyway, he is now fully painted and ready to motivate his troops, including the chopped in half tanker. I think this is a really good model and has been very nicely painted. The dirt around the bottom of the coat is quite a nice touch. Keep up the good work. Uncle Seal shared the first bolt-action soldier that they've painted. Not too bad for a first attempt. As always though, there is room for improvement. Maybe try blending the orange and yellow on the Molotov just a bit, and perhaps a little bit of dry brushing of the uniform colour again over the wash. Keep it up. Cartool shared this speck of dust. Okay, no, that looks to be a photo etch gun mount, I assume from a ship of some kind. Monol suggested that this is molecular engineering, and I kind of agree. It's so tiny, or maybe that knife is deceptively big. Probably not though. Either way, that's really cool, and I admire the patience it must take to put that kind of thing together. Duncanuva has shared some models that he's fixed. The red stripes on this first plane look like they've been painted in blood. Vicious. I have to say I'm kind of envious that it's nice enough that you can work outside. If I tried that, my skin would be burnt and everything would be melted into little puddles. This MiG-29 has been painted for an Area 88 character. I'm not sure what Area 88 is, but I think it might be an anime. There's a couple of primed boys here too. I do remember seeing that big cargo plane before, though I've forgotten what they're called. The last two are for an enemy ace for Duncanuva's alternate universe. It's very colourful. He also says if you guys want to, you can come up with a name for the pilot. I've written come up with a hilarious and great name here in my notes, but I've not done that. How about, Trevor? I got nothing. Put your name suggestions in the comments below. Sneaky Zaku said, been a while since I painted up some scenery, and so here's his Munitorum office section for a cargo depot which, as he says, has seen better days. I agree, it looks like it's had a rough time, but it also looks very good. I do like the style of 40k buildings. They're kind of decadent. Good work. Wilbur has just finished his Panzer 3M for bolt action, making this 28mm scale. The swastika on the flag has been obscured, which, because this is YouTube, is probably for the best. It looks pretty good though. Looks like it's been fighting hard for a long while, and has taken quite a few hits. Excellent work, keep it up. McGobbo has completed his Orlok gang for Necromunda. These look really good. They're a nice coherent team, or gang, I suppose. Very well painted, which is unsurprising because it's McGobbo. We have seen some of these before, but who wouldn't want to see them again? Also, it is quite nice to see them all together as a group. Very cool. Ducking Tanker shared this Vostroyan infantry commander. The theme she's going for is Prussians in space. Looks pretty good to me. I would say they're very choppy Prussians in space. And here's a Vostroyan sniper. Sniping's a good job, mate, is probably not what these guys sound like. Nice work. Ahmed Jaboa has finished this Soviet Stuart. I'm not sure what scale this is. It was probably mentioned when work in progress was shared, I'm just forgetful, but it looks to be sort of large. What I do know is that it looks really nice. Somebody else mentioned really liking that big 3 in the red rectangle, and I'm inclined to agree. Looks pretty good. Awesome work. Max Strike Eagle has shared this. It looks like it might be an extra fancy base or maybe a mini diorama. Whatever its purpose, it looks amazing. Also, the purple is apparently the Japanese symbol for wolf. This thing looks really lifelike and realistic. Great work. Monol shared the first Space Marine they've done, saying they're not very handy with figures yet. But if this is a first go at a Space Marine, I think you've got a pretty good idea on how to paint a figure. I think it looks pretty good, and it's a very nice shade of red. There are a couple of bits of red on the silver, but I'm sure you could easily clean that up if you wanted to. Keep up the good work. And that's it for the models this fortnight. Awesome as always. Of course, I have omitted a bunch of stuff, so if you want to see everything, you'll have to join the Discord server and check it out. There's a link in the description. Let's head on over to the Arts and Crafts channel and see what's been shared in there. Top Bunk Productions has shared this very sensible looking fellow. I really like angry Mosin noises. This guy is soon to be joined by 2 more comrades. Excellent. Broseph Stalin drew a King Tiger. He mentions the tracks looking a bit weird, and they do, but it's still pretty good. Broseph also drew a Stuka. It's pretty damn good. The proportions might be a little bit off, but without comparing to a real one, I can't tell. General Spade shared a sketch done for design and technology homework. Also included is the KV-1 used as a reference. Dreadnought Luna drew a C5, but says the proportions are a bit wonky. Looks pretty good to me though, nicely shaded. Also, here's a NASA 747 ferrying a space shuttle. I always thought the space shuttle getting a piggyback ride looked very interesting and cool. And here is a Kyoto bus. We don't really see much art or even models of buses around here. Very nicely done. Shiny Spurs Cowboy shared this mouse, which is very cute. Looks like there's also some other critters on the page too. Very nice. They also shared this, I think it's Pokemon's art, featuring maybe Shiny Spurs Cowboy themselves. It's very colourful. Sliberian has drawn this T-34. It looks like it's rushing forwards into battle. Glorious. Pax Britannica has shared this digital model of a Soviet mech. It's called the Wolverine, and it looks very cutty. Very interesting. Some dude has drawn this after finishing an exam. Or at least I assume it was after the exam. Either way, it's pretty rad. I used to draw all over my exams and stuff too. And that's it for the artwork this fortnight. As always, thank you to everybody who has shared their art and of course their models. Not to forget the questions. Thanks for all of those things. And once again, a very big thank you to Mitch Boudreau, who is our newest patron. If you have a question you want answered next fortnight, put it in the comments section below or on Discord. That's obviously the end of this edition of Ask a Herbert Erpaderp, so if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, follow, ring the bell, and all the other things you do on YouTube and social media. And if you really like the things I do, please consider supporting over on Patreon or by purchasing a shirt or mug from my merch store. Links to all the things are in the description below. I shall return soon, so until then, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.